just had a special election between Rob Quist and Greg Gianforte. So Greg Gianforte, douchebag extraordinaire, ran against Rob Quist, who was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. Apparently, the Democratic Party ran away from Rob Quist, even though he is a badass through and through. He is such a fucking cool guy. He had some background. He played music with Loretta Lynn, Michael Martin Murphey, so he's like a guitar, banjo, songwriter kind of guy. He's the ambassador, the music and cultural ambassador for the state of Montana. He was appointed by the Montana Arts Council by Governor Brian Schweitzer. He has toured extensively throughout the U.S., Canada, Japan, Democratic nominee. So for Montana's House seat, the guy who's got it now, he's moving on up, right? He's becoming the Interior Secretary or some shit. Exactly. The Secretary of the Interior is now going to be Ryan Zinke, right? Ryan Zinke is moving on up. And now you have an empty House seat. And this is important, the House and the Senate, because Democrats are going to take the House and the Senate in a year and a half from now. So for this douchebag extraordinaire, Greg Gianforte, he don't have much time to, fix America. And I'll get to him in a second. So Bernie Sanders had actually endorsed him. Bernie Sanders even campaigned for him. So what are his political positions? A whole bunch of stuff, okay? So he supports Obamacare. He wants to move to a single-payer health care system. He opposes this stupid House Republican bill bullshit, which is going to throw 24 million people out on their ass. And it says that he's criticizing inequality in the United States. Rob Quist says that the Republican health care bill is a tax cut for millionaires. He is criticizing inequality in the United States, saying that tax breaks for the rich exacerbates inequalities. Instead, he wants tax cuts for the working class. He opposes the privatization of federal lands, military intervention and regime change. So he's anti-war, excellent, unlike the the warmonger lovers. Is any form of ban, he's against a religious ban. He wants to transfer money from the federal military budget towards health care or Social Security. He supports a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. He's called for investments in clean coal technology, and energy from wind, solar, biomass, and geothermal sources. Geothermal sources and biomass, I keep forgetting about those. In fact, my high school was heated by He pledged to protect public lands. He was in favor of the legalization of marijuana, saying the war on drugs has been an abject failure. He supports same-sex marriage. He supports access to birth control, preventive screenings, and abortion rights. He argued that the assault on women's reproductive rights must come to an end. He's called for pay equity for women. He accepts the scientific consensus on climate change and supports to mitigate it. And let's see, so compared to his opponent, who did not have any specific ideas on how to address climate change, and he opposed closing coal-fired power plants. So that's good. All those things are pretty good, right? We got to keep coal power plants for the time being. He's for the legalization of marijuana. He's against all these goddamned wars. He's for the poor. He wants a single-payer health care system. He's against Citizens United. This guy's a dream come true. Gregory Richard Gianforte. What a douchebag, right? Dumb motherfucker. I can't stand him. I can't stand his policies. And he got national headlines one day before the election for body slamming a reporter from The Guardian. So this is The Guardian, right, the British newspaper. They're usually pretty decent, right? They're from an outside, perspective looking in. So, but, the mainstream media has been pretty shitty. So let me get to, so let's explain who this asshole is. So Greg Gianforte, he's a politician, businessman. He ran for the governor of Montana. He lost. He won the special election, so welcome, to the Congress there, fucking douchebag. And he's going to go drain the swamp. He's not going to slither in, like he says some people do. He's going to stay. The day before this special election, yesterday, right, the day before, The Guardian political reporter Ben Jacobs was allegedly assaulted by Gianforte with a body slam in which the reporter's glasses were broken. And Gianforte was charged with misdemeanor assault by the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office following the incident. And 3 statewide newspapers rescinded their endorsements. So, Gallatin County Sheriff. I grew up in Gallatin County in Kentucky. So, Gallatin County is named after Albert Gallatin, who was the Secretary of the Treasury under Thomas Jefferson. He was a Swiss immigrant, okay? And he actually helped establish a lot of the the ways that the United States collects taxes, and he had to figure out how to finance the government. So, Gallatin County charged Gianforte with misdemeanor assault, but that didn't hurt him. I got into an argument with a Green that I, actually respected for a pretty good long time, Brandon Celentaro, I don't know, some asshole out of Virginia, and he basically was a lonely sort of poster, I can relate to that, and so I was just going to give him a little bit of attention on his page, and then, I got on his page and just started commenting on a couple things, and it seems like he was a Green. It seems like he's posting a lot of good shit. But, man, I just mentioned that, I kind of like that he, attacked the media. He's a fighter, right? And fuck the media. When you look at how the media treated Bernie Sanders, they give Donald Trump all the coverage, a little bit to Hillary, nothing to Bernie Sanders. Look how the media treated Jill Stein, including The Guardian. The Guardian only wrote 2 articles, like 2 months before the end of Jill Stein. You didn't even mention Jill Stein? All you assholes that looked at Jill Stein and just discounted her, fuck you all. Fuck the main other connection. So Gallatin County has a newspaper that is run by the Warnicks. And then also Louisville has Joe Gerth, which are shitty fucking, yellow journalism fucking bastards. So I've ran for 2 major positions and then 1 write-in campaign, but I ran for state representative and I ran for lieutenant governor of Kentucky. So I have first-hand experience of what the media is like. Some people actually want to talk to you and see what your positions are, what kind of policies will you implement, but other ones, they just want to see the bullshit. So for the Gallatin County newspaper, the Warnicks, and for Joe Gerth, they didn't think I was significant enough to interview. Hey, what's your policies? What kind of lieutenant governor will you be? What kind of state representative will you be? They did not give a shit. They said, that he's insignificant, that he won't win, who gives a shit. But when they heard that I had some charges, which was abuse of a teacher, they went ahead and printed that shit up. So the Warnicks of Gallatin County newspaper and Joe Gerth, they went ahead and printed up the opposing people's side, okay? And he was a liar, and I wrote all the lies that he had said. It was a bullshit thing. There was no abuse. There was no violence whatsoever. The guy just started being rude to me, and I was like, well, if you want to take us outside, we could do that. And then he got all fucking, he hurt my feelings. It's a free speech case, and I'm appealing that decision right now. My public pretender is. And I don't know where that's going to go. I still, I didn't commit a crime. He was an asshole. He was being shitty to me. And, he wants to get rough with me, but I didn't do anything wrong. So I just, do you want to fight about it? This is on Boston Legal. You want to fight? Are you not allowed to ask that question? You can ask that question. It's a question, and if you consent, respected Ballotpedia until they, come up with this shit. I asked them to put this cool little picture. I changed the colors of my face. I had this yellow hair, and it was a cool cartoonish picture. So I think they were pissed off at that. Oh, you want us to put this picture of you? And so Ballotpedia went ahead and put that article. So Joe Gerth's article got traction, and a lot of people fucking read it, and they're like, oh, we know all about you, do you? Do you have any idea where I stand on any of the issues whatsoever? Because nobody fucking reported it. Only the local radio station in Breckinridge County reported it. That's the only people, and they was right-wing conservative. So if it bleeds, it leads. It's yellow journalism. It's this just fucking muckraking bullshit, right? They didn't think I was significant to cover until they had, something they thought was on me. Oh, we're going to fuck up his reputation. What I think is really, what's real bullshit about that incident had happened before I even ran. So they were talking about something before the campaign. Something happened during the campaign. while I was in the campaign, 10 years ago, I forgot to return a book. You know, I was homeless, and I went to go live with my friend up in Cleveland, and apparently I took a library book, and I forgot to return it. Well, so there's, you know, a $60 fine or whatever that eventually I just paid a portion of it, and the library was cool with it, but they pressed charges on me. And they didn't find out about it until, you know, 7 years later, while I was driving to Bowling Green for an interview. So I'm going to Bowling Green, or for I was a running mate, so for my running mate, I guess, he was doing an interview. So I was going to Bowling Green for this interview, and I got pulled over, and the cop looks at the thing, and he was like, did you check out a library book 7 years ago? And I laughed. Because what? You're going to what? You fucking throw me in jail? And he did. He put me in jail. And when I was in jail, go to jail, and when I'm in the Bowling Green County Jail, or whatever the fucking jail's called, there was a moment where the woman jailer started, like, yelling at me, even though she was, like, you know, trying to say, you know, my biographical information was this and it wasn't that. And it's like, I know who the fuck I am. What is your problem here? And she was like, you're going to accept this. No, I'm not going to accept this. You're not going to get in my face. And that's what she tried to start a fight. And then what happens then, right? It's their word versus mine. Jailers are going to win. If they start the fucking fight, I'm in jail for the rest of my life. And then I also got charged another $25 on top of it. There was a bail bond. So even though, you know, I go up to the judge and I say, you know, throw this out, and he was like, no, don't throw this out. And I was like, well, I'm going to go take care of it. So I went to the library, took care of it, and then he was like, you know, go ahead and talk to the clerk upstairs. And she's like, here's your $100 bail bond back, but we're going to take $25 from it. So if the $60 fine is so goddamn, went to the Kenton County, that's where it came out of. I forget that fucking piece of shit judge's name. He wouldn't let me get a public defender because he said I owned a vehicle. If I own a vehicle and I could sell it for $1,000, therefore, actually I sold it for even less than that, $100. But he said that if you own a vehicle, then you don't get a public defender because you could afford a lawyer. Sell your truck and now you could afford a lawyer. Well, how the fuck am I going to get to the goddamn courthouse? Okay, and I got to the courthouse only, you know, like an hour late or maybe 30 minutes late. You know, I wasn't there at the 9 o'clock opening, but the 11 o'clock closing, I thought I was able to get in there. But the ladies upstairs was nice enough to put me on the docket, but he was like, well, I could just, you know, charge you with contempt of court. That morning, I hit a deer. You know, I had to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning because I'm 3 hours away. I hit a fucking deer. Now my truck's all fucked up, and then I still, you know, missed it. Long story short, this is a fucking ordeal, okay? This was some bullshit. But Ballotpedia, they wrote every goddamn fucking thing that Joe Girth had said, that yellow journalistic bullshit. They said that I was screaming at the principal. I didn't scream. I very calmly and coolly said, well, you want to take us outside? And then he just was like, oh, you know, like a dumb fuck. And then I, you know, walked away. He didn't consent. So, okay, and then I waved to him as I was driving by. I waved. He testifies that, you know, that I flipped him off. He is a liar through and through, and fuck the judge and fuck the prosecutor in Breckinridge County for all this bullshit. So my point is that it was an ordeal, the library book thing. It was an ordeal, but the yellow journalistic muckraker sons of bitches didn't say shit about it. They didn't say shit. Ballotpedia only had like 2 sentences. So how come the Warnicks and how come Joe Girth, when I was a victim, they said nothing. And the difference is, this is important too, because the, you know, journalists should confront the administration, those that are in power. So yeah, I'm vying for power, so okay, you know, I am due a certain amount of criticism. But when I'm a victim to a public official, such as a police officer, that would be when you confront the police officer. Why did you arrest that guy? They didn't ask who the cop was. They didn't ask the jailers. They didn't ask any of the details, right, about the fucking bullshit, about how they stole $25 out of my pocket, how they tried to fucking, you know, start a fight with me in jail so I'd get some more assault charges over a library book charge, over a fucking library book charge. They're going to treat me like I'm a fucking rapist criminal when I'm in jail because I, you know, absentmindedly didn't check out, you know, didn't return a library book. Just absentmindedly. So it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I stole the damn thing. So yeah, you know, there should be maybe Girth, okay, so this happened twice with the Gallatin County. Me and my old man got into it, and of course, you know, they went ahead and printed all that shit up in Gallatin County. And then in Louisville, I had got beat up by the cops for no reason, just for walking down the goddamn street. Walking down the street, cops undercover cops ran into me. And they, were threatening me, and then I was like, fuck you, because I didn't know they were cops, and then they just started beating me up, and then I get raped in jail. So it was fucked up, and I told Joe Girth, hey, I got this police trial before I was a candidate, before I was, I was a student living in Louisville. So when I asked him to confront some dirty fucking police brutality, fucking violent fascist fucking public officials who's being paid with taxpayer dollars. And I even went to the internal affairs and I told them that I got raped, and they acted like they was going to disappear me or attack me again and throw me in jail during the campaign. Long story short, they didn't confront the public officials. They didn't give a shit. I'm just a private citizen, right? When bullshit happened to me, they didn't say anything. It makes me think of the Malcolm X quote where they say that the media will get you to think that the victims are the perpetrators and the perpetrators are the victims. Okay, so when I was a victim, they didn't say a goddamn thing. They couldn't wait to come after me. They did not stand up to the administration or the people that were in power being paid with taxpayer dollars. They went after the private citizen. And the fucking mass media sucks anyways. The mass media sucks, right? Look how they fucking backed Hillary. Look how, most of the country, 40% of the country, like several years after the Iraq War, still thought that Saddam Hussein has something to do with 9/11. When he had nothing to do with 9/11, they fucked over Bernie Sanders. They fucked over Jill Stein. Mainstream media is fucking shit. It's fucking shit. So it's fucking shit. Let's hear the audio recording here of Greg Gianforte. What is his name? Gianforte. That sounds like it might be Muslim. Is he a Muslim? It wouldn't matter if he was. What is Gianforte? Anyways, here's the audio of him get into a fight with this reporter.
Into the CBO score, because you were waiting to make your decision about healthcare until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what you thought.
We'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian.
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
You'd like me to get the hell out of here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
Okay, so they didn't give a shit about me, so when I first heard about this story, I was like, fucking body slamming a goddamn reporter. If Joe Girth or the Warnicks had got body slammed, I would not lose any goddamn sleep over this shit. Okay? So if you listen to it real closely, you only hear the very beginning. He does seem aggressive, the Guardian reporter. He's like, and there was one report where he said he grabbed Greg Gianforte's arm. So if he grabbed his arm, he laid hands on him, Gianforte has a right to defend himself. The results was 50% Greg Gianforte, Rob Quist 44%. Okay, so Greg Gianforte basically kicked ass. He won by 20 to 30,000, which is in politics a 5-point spread. A 10-point spread is like he was totally blown away. So I guess it's actually not that bad. Rob Quist had a very respectable lead in there, and then Greg Gianforte had to actually deal with Mark Wicks, the Libertarian candidate, who won 21,000 votes, 5.7%. So good job for Mark Wicks for a third party breaking the 5% threshold. So Greg Gianforte, the reporter body slamming, a piece of shit, right? Don't get me wrong, I do not agree with Gianforte. I just can't stand the fucking media. Now, Gianforte, who is he? What does he represent? I got these numbers right. Greg Gianforte, 50% of the vote. Rob Quist, 44% of the vote. And Mark Wicks, 5.7%. 50%, 44%, 6%. Greg, Rob, Mark. Okay, so that was the Montana race. Now, if you listen to the very top, the very beginning of the tape, we don't hear the whole conversation. So I'm assuming Ben Jacobs was probably, being a pushy little bitch, just like, hey, answer my question, okay? And then it said that Ben Jacobs grabbed his, okay. So it says here the CBO score, because, you know, we are waiting to make your decision about health care until you saw the bill and it just came out. Greg Gianforte, yeah, we'll talk to you about that later. Jacobs, yeah, but there's not going to be a time. I'm just curious. Gianforte, okay, speak with Shane, please. And then scuffling noises, a louder crash, thumping. I'm sick and tired of you guys. Jesus Christ. Okay, so the very beginning.
Into the CBO score, because you know you were waiting to make your decision about healthcare until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what
Yeah,
you
and
thought
we'll
about
talk
it.
to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have
Okay,
the action
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here.
Ben Jacobs is already being aggressive. And, you know, he asked him, please speak with Shane. I'm not going to answer that right now. I answered later. He said he would, but he's like, no, I got deadlines, and I need you, my corporate newspaper, my corporate masters need me to get some kind of news. And he got some fucking news, right? Gianforte said, I'm sick and tired of you guys. Jacobs says, Jesus Christ, the last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Jesus, get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You with the Guardian? So he said, are you with the Guardian, right? So the last fucking Guardian, what did they do? You know, how shitty were they? Now, they're asking a good question. They're asking about the health care bill. But I want to know, all we have is audio recording, and then there's a Fox News reporter that, you know, apparently corroborated, who said that Ben Jacobs was not violent prior to the thing, but Gianforte totally was. But how close was Ben Jacobs? If you're within my arm span, you're in my area. That's almost... I actually saw this with Luke Rudowski, and I like him, the We Are Change guy. But he was interviewing Oliver Stone, and every time he'd answer the question, he would just put down his hand, and then he would like put the microphone right into his face. That's fucking rude, okay? So keep the microphone like here to where I could fucking talk to. Don't shove it in my fucking face because, you know, you get close to me like that. I get a little nervous. I want to know how far Ben Jacobs was to Gianforte. And then he was, you know, if he's not in his space, let's give Ben Jacobs the benefit of the doubt. He's not right in his face like, hey, I want to, you know, hey, why don't you tell me about the health care? I want to know about the health care, you know. Tell me. You got to tell me now. I got corporate deadlines, man. I got to get paid. Fuck. I need a story. Oh, I'll give you a story, all right. And let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he's not in his face like that, okay? He's asking questions, but it did say he grabbed his wrist. If he grabbed his wrist first, let's get this clear. Greg Gianforte is a piece of shit. He's all about Trump care or Republican care. This Republican care is going to fuck over the American people. It's going to throw 24 million Americans off of health care, and it's going to fuck them over. Obamacare was a success. If it wasn't for Obamacare, I would have got no fucking justice. I would have got no, you know, after the fucking Louisville cops had beat me up, that Obamacare had helped fix that. I've never had health care until Obamacare. So Obamacare changed my entire life. So the Republicans are trying to tank Obamacare. They're going to fuck it over with this shitty-ass plan that's going to make it worse. It's not single-payer. It's nothing. So fuck, you know, Gianforte. He's such a fucking dickhole. But as a man, I respect it. And I even mentioned it, you know, I kind of liked that he fucking body slammed. I kind of liked it. You know, as a voter, you know, the voters of Montana apparently liked it too. Because fuck. This is the dailycaller.com. It says that Gianforte then grabbed Jacobs by the neck with both hands and slammed him down to the ground behind him. It breaks Ben Jacobs, you know, glasses. And I'll get a picture of actually Ben Jacobs. Let's see what we're talking about with this guy. But I'm sick and tired of you guys. You came in here and he's like, you broke my glasses. Get the hell out of here. You just broke my glasses. And then he started asking the reporters questions. You saw what happened, didn't you? You saw what happened. And they're kind of like, we don't want to be part of this. You just pissed off, you know, a House Republican, and you're a fucking Brit. So, you know, why are you even here? Get the hell out of here, you goddamn Brits. We fucking conquered you once. The Fox News Acuna, she said, at no point did any of us who witnessed the assault see Jacobs show any form of physical aggression towards Gianforte, who left the area after giving statements to local sheriff's deputies. Greg Gianforte defended the candidate in a statement, and they said that Jacobs had grabbed Gianforte's wrist. Now, was it a nice little, you know, hey, can I just, please, you know, just kind of tugging at him? You're laying hands on a man. Malcolm X says, if one man lays his hands on you, you send him to the cemetery. There is a kind of dominance there. Even if you just put your hand on someone's shoulder, right? There's a dominance there. When you grab them by the wrist, they said here, they aggressively shoved the recorder into Greg's face. Jacobs was asked to leave. After asking Jacobs to lower the recorder, Jacobs declined. I didn't hear that in the recorder, but Greg then attempted to grab the phone that was pushed in his face. Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist and spun away from Greg, pushing them both to the ground. That's quite a different story now, isn't it? Jacobs was asked to leave. After asking Jacobs to lower the recorder, Greg then attempted to grab the phone that was pushed in his face. So, phone, the recorder. So he was recording from his phone. Hey, excuse me, hey, tell me what's going on. And then he's like, hey, get that phone out of my face. It's in his, the reason why I think that if you're in someone's arm space, if you're within this far of me, that means you can reach me. If you can reach me, then that means you can hit me. So if you're in that space that's in front of me, maybe even all around me. I have a perimeter all around me. Now, this would be weird on the bus. This would be weird in a lot of, public locations. But that's what I believe. If you're around me within arm span and you could reach me, that means you can hit me. And so if you're coming at me with a recorder in my face saying, I got to answer a question right now because of what the fuck ever, that Ben Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist. So he says, here's the phone, and then he tries to grab the phone, and then he grabs the wrist like, hey, no, don't take my phone. That's important. That's important. Who laid hands on who first? That's important. That's important because the person who starts the fight, if you're just peacefully reading a book over to the side, minding your own business, reading a little book, and then somebody just comes up and punches you or is like, hey, answer my questions right now. And then you're like, kind of smack his hands out of the way, and then he's smacking you, and now you guys are down on the ground. There's a BuzzFeed reporter, former Daily Caller Hill correspondent, Alexis Levinson, says she heard the altercation through the doorway. She walked into the room to interview Gianforte. Then all of a sudden I heard a giant crash, and I saw Ben's feet fly in the air as he hit the floor. It's humiliating. Ben Jacobs says he fucking bodies. In the heat of the moment, Greg Gianforte did something to the media that is cathartic. It was cathartic. Ben Jacobs, I don't know, he might be an okay guy. He might be, he might not have been aggressive, but if you're shoving the thing, he was aggressive. He was like, I don't have time. I don't have time. You need to answer. I don't have time. Okay, well, you're going to have to wait for time just because you did not plan, That's, it's not an emergency to me. You need to plan better. The reason why, Greg Gianforte is a fucking bitch, okay? In his heat of passion, he did something that was cathartic for me. Even until I read who he was, and I was like, fuck this guy, right? He's an asshole. But Paul Ryan says, you must apologize. And of course, when he won, that's the first thing he said. He was like, last night I made a mistake, and I took an action that I can't take back. I'm not proud of what happened. I should have not responded that way, and for that he should not have apologized for it. In fact, that might be how he's going to be, guilty of the assault charge. He might have to serve some time in jail, before he gets to go to the Congress. So he might not be able to vote if he's in jail for the assault charge, right? You assaulted somebody, citizen would go to jail if they assaulted somebody. So if he's convicted, he should go to jail too. And so here's the more of his apology. I should not have responded the way that I did, and for that I'm sorry. A member of the crowd shouted, and you're forgiven! But he didn't care. He ignored the constituent. I should not have treated that reporter that way. And for that, I'm sorry, Mr. Ben Jacobs. Mr. Ben Jacobs, please drop the charges. Oh, my God. I didn't know I was going to get in trouble. And Paul Ryan is talking about me. So what a cunt. And then Congressman-elect went on to run through his campaign themes, promising to work with the Trump administration and to drain the swamp. It just seems when people go to Washington, D.C., they drink the water. To Washington, D.C., they just drink the water and slither into the swamp, he said, before announcing that he would continue to live in Montana and commute to the Capitol. Right? So, that's actually good, right? He'll stay in Montana, right? I'll stay here, and every once in a while, I'll go ahead and spend lots of airplane travel just so I can, I don't know. But they're going to drink the water. He's going to start drinking the water when he drives, when he flies there, and he's going to go ahead and slither into that new swamp. Montana sent a strong message tonight that we want a congressman that will work with Trump to make Montana and America great again. He touched on public lands. Don't know what his position, probably against public lands. Veterans, probably hates veterans. The Second Amendment, he was the other guy, Quist. I'm a pro-gun liberal myself, so I like Quist, the Second Amendment, so he doesn't trump him on that. And then balancing the budget in his speech. But it reminds me of Jack Nicholson in Batman, the first one with Michael Keaton. You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? All his other pictures, I didn't see Ben Jacobs with glasses, but here's the day after picture. And it doesn't seem, he seems unscathed, right? He's, being choke slammed, thrown down on the ground. So I don't know if he got any scratches or bruises on him. If he grabbed the wrist, he's in the wrong. He's in the wrong. So Ben Jacobs, he also said that he got wailed on a couple times. He took me to the ground when he was talking on the phone from the back of an ambulance. I think he wailed on me once or twice. He got on me, and I think he hit me. This is the strangest thing that has ever happened to me in reporting on politics. I guess it was pretty strange.
The bounds of anything normal in journalism. Ben, why do you think he reacted that way?
Don Lemon.
I don't know. There seemed to be some discontent over colleagues of mine who had been reporting the state a couple of weeks ago, but it was very,
Discontent.
When you talk to politicians as a reporter, sometimes they're less happy to talk to you than others. But there's never any, I can't imagine. I mean, this is a situation where one adult decided to body slam another adult without warning or provocation.
Hey, you didn't warn me.
I still can't quite fathom, why, not
the
just
pain,
politician
the pain that I've suffered.
Two adult human beings would, why that would happen in that situation. Journalism is such a fundamental part of the democratic process. And you're seeing across the world right now journalists being killed in Russia and Mexico. Not to mention some have journalists to try to report facts and provide
He's making some good points.
Oversight and accountability.
And I'll defend him in a second.
And still sort of slightly flabbergasted, not just by the assault, but by the statement that was put out last night, which was in some ways far worse. That I can heal up. It's not the end of the world. But as someone who's a journalist who relies on my integrity and my reputation for being trustworthy, that type of attack in some ways was beyond the pale.
So there's two things interesting there that he said. He didn't actually get into the details of it. So he said that the statement was worse because if he didn't grab the wrist and he didn't shove the recorder in his face, then he's completely innocent. And so I'll say this. If he did not do any of those things, he's absolutely right when it comes that there's a war on journalists right now. It's clear that Donald Trump doesn't like journalists, but I don't like journalists either, and sometimes they can be picky, but I think what bothers me is Joe Girth. What the fuck does Joe Girth believe in? He's got no fucking principles. He's got no ideology. That's why he didn't care about my policy. He didn't give a shit about the state of Kentucky. He didn't want to make it better. He didn't give a fuck about any of that stuff. He just wanted to get his story, get it printed so he could get paid. Okay, so I would like to know, more details about did he grab the wrist? Did you shove the recorder into his face? And so that's absolutely true. Let's assume Ben Jacobs is in the right. Then, yeah, you're allowed to ask any questions you want to ask. In fact, if you're standing away from me and you're like, fuck you, you asshole, you're going to be in favor of the goddamn Republican. You think Republicare is going to be so caring. Republicans don't care. The fucking health care bill. Fuck you! Huge freedom of speech advocate. I very much love freedom of speech. I love that being, the cornerstone of our entire society, the First Amendment, right? And so I love that. If you're standing away from me, you're not running towards me, and you're just like, fuck you for this, and you're just kind of cussing me out, I would have to sit there and take it. I'd have to sit there and take it without, put any violence on you. Now, if you're saying like, hey, you bitch, you son of a bitch, you want to fight? Come on, fight. Well, if you're, baiting me and you're asking me to fight, well, if you're asking me to fight, then it's, up to whether or not I want to consent to it. Now, if you attack me, I have a right to defend myself, and vice versa. So, if he, on Ben Jacobs' behalf, if all he did was ask the question, and he was, at a distance away. You can't be that far if you got the recorder in his face. You can't be that, that's. So what you just heard Ben Jacobs say with that Don Lemon interview was that he had a prior beef. There was some other Guardian that did something to, another Guardian reporter that was aggressive or fucking bullish or something. So there's another prior beef that's going on. He didn't really get into that either. He didn't explain the situation. He didn't really get into it. Who loses? Ultimately, Colorado loses because Greg Gianforte is a piece of shit. So fuck him. Montana, the people of Montana, you fucked up. Greg Gianforte, he's not going to drain the swamp. Rob Quist is one of the best fucking guys that I know. Rob Quist is a badass. I love Rob Quist. I just met him, and now I'm going to probably forget about him. So that sucks, Montana. You had an opportunity to elect a Bernie Sanders, and you didn't. Instead, you elected a right-wing fucking thug. And what was he right or wrong with it? Looking at all the evidence, I can't tell who's right and who's wrong. I mean, we're supposed to assume that if you're a reporter, you're just an innocent bystander, you're just a person asking friendly questions, but you go up to people and you're aggressive with them, and, it's like, they're yelling, you have to listen to what they're saying, and you can't even, think in your own head, and it's like, hey, I already told you I was going to answer you later on. So I read a little bit more about this. Ben Jacobs said he was just I'm just trying to ask a simple question. Well, he was asking a hard question, which you knew what Greg Giaforte Greg Gia fucking dickwad. He was clearly going to be a sycophant for Trump and suck his dick, and he's going to vote in favor of the health care fucking bill because fuck him. And it's wildly unpopular. He didn't want to answer the question, so he's going to have like some prepared statement later on. But, Ben Jacobs is on a corporate deadline. Get that story in. I need a story. Where's your story? And it'd been a boring story if he'd been like, yeah, fuck the health care people. But CNN's Chris Cuomo, that it was a strange moment when he suddenly, grabs my recorder and then things go haywire from there. And then later on they said that he was being punched, and then it says, then all the evidence backs him up. I don't think it does. Of course, the media would be like, hey, you can't hit us. We're allowed to be assholes. You can't hit us. There is going after Julian Assange, wanting to prosecute, Julian Assange for WikiLeaks or Edward Snowden or Bradley Manning. I do like the truth. I prefer the truth. So in general, I like the media more than I would like the fucking politicians, but they've been in each other's fucking pockets, and it's, Donald Trump was a clown and he was stupid, but the mass media covered him. They would rather film a blank podium with nobody behind it instead of covering Bernie Sanders. They'd rather just say, oh, Donald Trump's going to be talking soon, instead of saying, well, you know what, Jill Stein says, let's dismantle Salon.com article here that said that you should have seen this coming because there was this one report where there was a questioner who was asking a, softball question, was like, you know what, our biggest enemy is the news media. And he looked at the Rivali Republic reporter sitting next to him and raised his hands like he would like it to wring his neck. All these damn media people. And then guess what? Eventually Gianforte wrung a fucking reporter's neck. So I'm sorry for actually laughing about this whole thing. Sorry for Ben Jacobs if he's innocent. It's just that when I think about it, I think about how the media treated Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders. I think about how the media treated me. You should be hostile with the fucking media, especially corporate fucking muckraking sons of bitches. Ben Jacobs got his story. He had a deadline. I don't have time. You got to answer my healthcare question. There's no time. And he's like, hey, I'll answer your question later on. And I'm not for sure who's in the right and who's in the wrong.
A lot of politicians, a lot of questions, and no one's ever body slammed me before. I've had such wonderful reaction from folks I've known, from folks I've worked with, from people.
That has to suck that this humiliating experience had happened to him, right? He got taken down. Ben Jacobs could have kicked his fucking ass. If Ben Jacobs is in the right, he could have fucking knocked the, Gianforte back down. And then, now people would be cheering him on. So I once heard, I've had a rough life, okay? And I almost think that the jury didn't go along with me getting beat up by the police because I punched the cop, but I didn't punch him hard enough. I punched him and it skidded off the top of his head. If I would have knocked the motherfucker out instead of being the victim, and being like, hey, please, listen, I was a victim. What the fuck? If I punched you in your face and then raped you, do you think you might have a problem with that? Huh? He said Trump never body slammed him.
Not just in the United
I
States,
covered Trump and he didn't body slam me. So even though Trump's saying all this horrible rhetoric, Ben Jacobs is kind of covering for Trump. Even though he's kind of normalizing, the anti-media bias. Nobody's treated Trump, with more surety, ever in history. No one's ever treated any president more worse.
Because the press plays such an important role in scrutinizing elected officials, which is what the founding fathers realized with the First Amendment.
So I'm trying to, decipher about who put whose hands on who. He shoves a recorder in your face, he grabs the recorder, but then they say that he grabs his wrist. That could be, I think that's possible. I think it's possible, right? Someone's grabbing something out of your hand and then you just kind of grab their wrist, hey, don't take my phone away from me.